Hello, my name is Gabriel Forrester. I will be giving a presentation on the topic of marketing genetically engineered foods. The focus of this presentation will be set on labeling genetically engineered crops such as corn or wheat. I will cover the pros and cons of mandatory labeling of these crops as they enter the marketplace. Now, labeling crops as containing GMOs or not containing GMOs sounds simple enough, as in there is a simple answer, as in yes we should or no we should not. However, a topic such as this reaches to the public, then psychological functions affect how the average individual responds to labeling or the lack thereof. This results in varying views of the individual and public that can impact the economy, the scientific society, and the agricultural community. First, I will cover a few positive consequences of labeling. Perhaps the whole reason for labeling crops in the first place is for the consumer. A large majority of consumers want to know what they are purchasing and what is in it. Small farms and local businesses may exhibit gain in their business due to the public initially trying to avoid GMO foods from large industries. This could bring improvement to the local economy in the short term. Scientific and legislative developments may progress over time more so than in recent years. I use the word may deliberately here because this issue and its progress could come to a halt depending on how the public responds. Consumers in general want to know what they are buying. For this reason, the FDA has already made it mandatory for companies to list ingredients, allergens, and origin of production for products they sell. As GMOs become more of an everyday topic, one would expect that products should be labeled for GMOs as well for consumer satisfaction. Studies on consumer concerns about foods resulted in the conclusion that the average American is somewhat to severely concerned about GMO ingredients in products. This gray area is why labeling is only voluntary at the moment. When consumers see a GMO label or a no GMO label on the product, it can lead to enhancement of public knowledge and new small businesses opening up in the community. Also, with a new labeling policy in effect, legislation can move on to new topics resulting in progress. This is a result of the voting from the consumer in America. Positive outcomes may be seen on the small crop business level. Local farmers may see increased business if GMO labeling becomes mandatory. Right now, most Americans see GMOs as an evil entity and will most likely avoid products labeled as containing GMOs. However, consumers still need food, so they will most likely begin to rely on smaller businesses that do not use GMOs. Furthermore, this is probably only a short-term benefit, as today's younger generations are not against GMOs to the degree that older generations are. If labeling became mandatory, America would be catching up to the rest of the world in a way. Many countries require labeling in the trade industry due to the WTO policy. Right now, companies can use the to each his own mindset when labeling. Since there are more immediate negative consequences on a national level, large companies have not labeled products for the most part, which may not be beneficial in the long term on an international level. In the long term, our nation's economy would benefit from exports. Now I will cover some negative consequences of labeling. Due to the public's current mindset about GMOs, production of GMOs would decrease, thus limiting business and economic progress. Due to the lack of demand for GMOs, funding for research would be reduced as well. In the market, risks and consequences are separated out among companies and industries. When GMO labeling becomes mandatory, all risks and consequences are placed on the GMO companies, creating too much of a burden to continue business. With the current voluntary labeling policy, GMO production is optimal for the economy. When the labeling policy becomes a mandatory labeling policy, GMO production would decrease initially, hurting the national economy. Export tariffs are expected to increase as well. Over time, this issue is expected to balance itself out. However, the initial lack in demand would reduce research. Since the public frowns upon the concept of GMOs, when production decreases, it is expected that the scientific progress will be halted. When large companies lose the reason for research, they will cut funding and GMO progress will be stopped there. This lack of research can be very harmful to the future. With the population increasing at exponential rates, food production will need to increase at the same rate. Most likely, the scientific hiatus would be temporary, but that is time we will not get back. However, if the halt becomes permanent during this period of rapid growth, economic collapse and famine may occur. GMO companies have a bullseye on them as it is. Products throughout the marketplace are made of different ingredients from different companies. With this in mind, each company shares a certain amount of risk and consequence if the product has an issue such as E. coli contamination or the like. With mandatory labeling, GMO companies would be required to take the entirety of the risks and consequences in addition to their suboptimal production. This combination would cause business to become difficult, thus limiting progress in the GMO field. Positive and negative consequences lead to where we are now. Because of the items listed above, we find ourselves in a standstill deciding what actions to take next. Taking all the repercussions into account takes time in order to make the right decision.